The first call came while the cicadas were screaming themselves raw outside my trailer, the kind of Texas summer noise that makes you feel like the whole world is buzzing with fever. I was sitting at the little kitchen table with a sweating glass of iced tea, trying to ignore the smell of the lake drifting in through the screen door. Lake Wexler never smelled right in August. Rotting weeds, dead fish, mud that had been cooking under the sun for weeks. The phone rang once, sharp and loud, and I remember thinking how strange it was to hear a landline anymore. I almost didn't answer. I wish I hadn't. "Hello," I said. At first, there was nothing. Just breathing. Not heavy breathing, not dramatic. Calm. Patient. Like someone standing behind you in line at the grocery store. "Hello," I said again. A man's voice came through, low and dry, like it had been sanded down. "You shouldn't be there." My skin prickled. "Who is this?" "You shouldn't be there," he repeated, and then the line went dead. I stood there holding the receiver, listening to the dial tone. I told myself it was a prank. Kids from town, bored and mean. But the thing that stuck with me was the voice. No accent, no anger, just certainty. That night, I dreamed of the lake. I dreamed I was standing on the old boat ramp, the concrete slick with algae, the water flat and black like oil. The moon was so bright it hurt to look at, and something was moving beneath the surface. Not swimming, shifting, like a body rolling over in its sleep. The second call came the next evening, just as the sun was dropping behind the mesquite trees and turning the sky the color of a bruise. "I told you," the voice said the moment I answered. "You shouldn't be there." "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, though my heart was already hammering. "If this is a joke." "It's not a joke." A pause. I heard wind this time. "It's closer now." The line went dead again. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch with all the lights on, listening to the distant splash of something out on the lake. Around 3 in the morning, I heard a sound that made my stomach turn cold. Knocking. Slow. Wet. Coming from the direction of the water. When I finally worked up the nerve to look outside, there was nothing there. Just the dock, sagging and gray, stretching out into the dark. I drove into town the next day and asked around. The clerk at the gas station went quiet when I mentioned the lake. "People used to drown out there," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Long time ago, before they drained it and filled it back up." "For what?" I asked. He shrugged. "No one ever said." The third call came as I was driving back, my cell phone lighting up with no caller ID. I almost dropped it when I answered. "You asked about the water," the voice said. "That was a mistake." "Who are you?" I shouted. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to listen." His breathing was louder now. Closer. When they filled the lake back up, they didn't empty it first. The call cut off as my tires hit gravel and skidded. I pulled over and threw up in the ditch. After that, the calls came every night. Always after dark. Always the same voice. Sometimes it told me things I hadn't told anyone. My mother's maiden name. The way my brother screamed when he drowned, years ago, in a different lake, a different town. Sometimes it just breathed and let me hear the water sloshing around it. On the 7th night, the voice changed. "They can hear you now," it said. "Hear who?" I whispered. "The ones under the water." The knocking came back that night, louder than before. I didn't look. I knew better. I sat on the floor with my hands over my ears, crying like a child. The final call came just before dawn. The sky was pale, the cicadas finally quiet. "You waited too long," the voice said. And for the first time, it sounded afraid. The phone rang again immediately after. And again, and again. Dozens of calls piling on top of each other. All no caller ID. All ringing at once. The sound filling the trailer until it felt like my skull would split. Then, silence. I went outside. The lake was gone. Not drained. Not dried up. Just gone. The dock ended in empty air. Below it was a vast pit of mud and bones and rusted cars and bloated, pale shapes tangled together, mouths open as if still screaming. They all turned their heads toward me at the same time. My phone rang in my hand. I answered. And this time, every voice spoke at once, from the receiver and from the pit below, from the mud and the bones and the dead water that had never really left. "We told you," they said. "No one can hear you anymore." The first time my phone rang at 2:17 a.m., I thought it was my alarm glitching. I was half asleep in the cab of my truck, parked off Highway 87 just north of a nowhere Texas town called Bristle Creek. The road there runs straight and flat for miles, cutting through scrubland and cattle fences, the kind of place where headlights feel swallowed by darkness instead of cutting through it. I hauled livestock feed at night. Better pay, less traffic. And I'd pulled over because my eyes were burning and my thoughts were starting to smear together. The phone vibrated in the cup holder. No caller ID. I stared at it, annoyed more than scared. I hadn't given this number to anyone except Dispatch and my ex-wife, and neither of them would call me in the dead of night. I answered anyway. Yeah. Static hissed, low and thick, like wind dragging across a microphone. Beneath it, I heard something else. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Hello. I said. A voice came through, faint but clear, like it was speaking from far away. You stopped too early. My stomach tightened. Who is this? You're not at mile marker 62 yet, the voice said. Male. Old. Cracked around the edges. That's where it happens. What happens? I asked, already knowing I didn't want the answer. Silence. Then the call dropped. I sat there with the phone in my hand, listening to the hum of my engine and the distant chirr of insects outside. The air felt wrong. Heavy. Pressed in on me. I checked the dash clock. 2:18 a.m. I laughed it off, told myself it was some bored kid with a radio scanner. I pulled back onto the highway and drove. At mile marker 62, my headlights caught something standing on the shoulder of the road. I slammed the brakes. It was a man, or it looked like one. Tall, thin, wearing a reflective vest like road crew workers use. His face was turned away from me, toward the dark fields beyond the fence. I rolled down the window a crack. You okay, man? He turned. His face looked wrong, too smooth, like someone had erased all the details and then tried to redraw them from memory. His eyes were just dark hollows, swallowing light. My phone rang. I screamed and dropped it. The man on the shoulder didn't move. The ringing stopped. When I looked again, the shoulder was empty. I didn't stop driving until dawn. The second call came the next night. I was home then, in my small rental house on the edge of town, trying to convince myself the night before hadn't happened the way I remembered it. I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed on the counter. No caller ID. I didn't answer. It rang again, and again. On the fourth ring, I picked up. You saw him, the voice said. Same voice, same distant tone. That means you're part of it now. Part of what? I whispered. The stretch, he said. The road that doesn't forget. I hung up, hands shaking so badly toothpaste dripped onto the sink. I tried calling the number back. It didn't exist. That night, I dreamed of the highway. Not the way it really looks, but stretched and bent, the asphalt sagging like soft flesh. I dreamed of cars half buried beneath it, headlights still glowing, drivers trapped inside, and screaming silently. The third call came while I was driving again, the following night. You didn't tell anyone, the voice said approvingly. Good. I don't want this, I said. Whatever it is. A sound like a chuckle. No one ever does. The headlights flickered. For a split second, the road ahead vanished. Not darkness, absence. Like the world had been erased. When it snapped back, there was a car in front of me. An old sedan, rusted, crawling along at 20 miles an hour. Its brake lights came on. I swerved to avoid it and felt my truck lurch. When I looked back, the sedan was gone. My phone buzzed. That was close, the voice said. Most people don't get that far. I started drinking after that, sleeping with the lights on, avoiding Highway 87. It didn't matter. The calls followed me. Sometimes they warned me. Sometimes they described things I couldn't see yet. A dead cow on the shoulder, a blown tire, a patrol car parked in the dark. They were always right. On the seventh night, the voice changed again. You've reached the end, it said. Turn around. I can't, I said, tears running down my face as I drove. There's no exit. There never is. The road ahead twisted, bending into a shape that no road should take. The asphalt rippled. The mile markers were wrong now, counting backward. I saw the man in the reflective vest standing in the middle of the lane. My phone rang. Pull over, the voice said. And for the first time, it sounded tired. Someone has to answer the calls. I hit the brakes. The truck slid. The world tilted. The last thing I remember is standing on the shoulder, wearing a vest I don't remember putting on, watching my own truck disappear into the dark curve of the road. Now my phone rings every night at 2:17 a.m. No caller ID. And when someone answers, I tell them the same thing the voice told me, because the road doesn't forget, and it always needs someone to warn the next driver. You stopped too early. The first voicemail came while I was at work, during the slow hour after lunch when the Texas heat settles into the building like a living thing and everyone moves quieter, slower, as if the air itself might crack if disturbed. I worked records at the county courthouse in a town so small it barely deserved a name. 2 traffic lights, 1 diner, a lake 10 miles out that people pretended was for fishing, but everyone really knew was for dumping things they didn't want found. My phone buzzed in my desk drawer. I didn't check it right away. Phones weren't supposed to be out, and besides, it was probably my sister asking for money again. When I finally listened to it, my skin went cold. There was no voice, just sound, a faint crackling, like wine through dead reeds. Somewhere in the background, water lapping gently. And beneath it all, so faint I almost missed it, a rhythmic tapping. Tap, 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 like fingernails on glass. The voicemail was 3 minutes long. At the very end, just before it cut off, something brushed the microphone. A soft, wet sound, then breathing, right against my ear. I deleted it and told myself it was a wrong number, or pocket noise, or some glitch. Phones do weird things. That's what I told myself. That night, my landline rang at exactly 11:43 p.m. I hadn't heard that phone ring in months. I almost jumped out of my skin. I let it ring until it stopped, heart pounding, then sat there in the dark listening to the ceiling fan tick. It rang again. I picked it up. Hello. Silence. Then the same sound from the voicemail. Water. Wind. Tapping. Who is this? I asked. The tapping stopped. A woman's voice whispered, so softly I had to strain to hear it. You filed the report wrong. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, but my mouth had gone dry. The drowning, she said. You changed the time. The line went dead. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak of the house. Around 3 a.m., I heard water dripping. Slow, steady, from somewhere inside the walls. The next day, I searched the records. 3 years ago, there had been a drowning at Lake Calder. A woman, late 20s. Name, Marissa Holt. Official time of death, 9:12 p.m. I remembered it now. I had been new, overwhelmed, rushing. The sheriff had come in tired and angry and told me to log it as accidental, no investigation. I typed the report while he stood over me, watching. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. My phone buzzed. New voicemail. This one had a voice. You were there, the woman said. Her voice sounded swollen, distorted, like it was being pushed through water. You heard me. Memory came back in fragments. A scream across the lake. A splash. Laughter from teenagers on the other side of the shore. I remembered pausing, listening, then shaking my head and going back to my paperwork. The voicemail ended with the tapping again. Louder now. Faster. That night, the calls started. They came every hour. Sometimes it was the woman. Sometimes it was nothing but water sounds and breathing. Once, I heard something bump against wood, over and over, like a body hitting a dock. I stopped answering. It didn't help. The voicemails piled up. My inbox filled until it was nothing but her voice. She couldn't swim, one message whispered. They pushed me, said another. In one, she screamed. On the 4th night, I woke up choking. My bedroom floor was wet. Not flooded, just damp, as if the house itself were sweating. Water dripped from the ceiling fan, slow and deliberate, each drop hitting my face like a finger. The phone rang. I answered without thinking. You changed the time, she said. That gave them time. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry. Silence. Then, very calmly, come see. I drove to the lake before sunrise, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Fog clung to the water, thick and low. The place was empty. No birds. No insects. Just the soft sound of water moving. My phone buzzed. Dock 3, the voicemail said. I walked out onto the dock. The wood was slick beneath my feet. Halfway down, I saw something floating just beneath the surface. Pale. Still. A face stared up at me from the water. Not decomposed. Not bloated. Preserved. Her eyes were open, fixed on mine. Her mouth opened slowly, bubbles spilling out. My phone rang in my pocket. I didn't answer. The water moved. Hands broke the surface. Fingers closed around my ankle, ice cold, strong. I fell. As the water closed over my head, sound vanished. No screaming. No splashing. Just pressure and darkness. My phone lit up beneath the surface. Incoming call. No caller ID. I don't know how long I was under. Long enough to understand something terrible. She wasn't pulling me down. She was holding me in place, keeping me there, making sure I heard. Voices filled the water. Men's voices. Laughing. The splash. Her scream. Again and again. Looping. Playing through me like sound through bone. When I woke up, I was on the shore, coughing lake water and mud. The sun was up. The dock was empty. Calm. My phone was dry in my hand. No missed calls. Back at work, there was a new report waiting to be filed. Another drowning. Time of death, blank. I stared at the cursor, blinking on the screen. My phone buzzed. A voicemail appeared. 3 minutes long. I didn't listen. I typed the time carefully, accurately, every second exact. That night, the dripping stopped. But sometimes, when the courthouse is quiet and the air is heavy and still, I hear tapping from inside the file cabinets. Tap, 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 waiting for someone else to get it wrong. The house on County Road 214 wasn't supposed to be rented anymore. That's what the woman at the real estate office said when I told her the address. She frowned at her screen, clicked twice, then looked back up at me like I'd said something obscene. That property's been vacant for years, she said. No utilities, no listing. But I signed a lease, I told her. I paid first and last month. She asked who the landlord was. I told her the name that was printed at the bottom of the lease. Her face drained of color. She slid the paper back to me with 2 fingers, like it might bite. That man's been dead since 2009. I laughed, too loudly. That's not possible. I spoke to him, on the phone. She didn't laugh back. No, she said. You didn't. I drove away with the windows down, heat blasting my face, trying to convince myself she was wrong. Small towns get things mixed up. Names repeat. People exaggerate. But the deeper I went down County Road 214, the quieter everything became. No traffic, no birds. Even the cicadas seemed to thin out, like the land itself was holding its breath. The house sat alone at the end of the road, surrounded by scrub oak and tall grass gone yellow from the sun. A one-story ranch-style place, peeling white paint, porch sagging just enough to look tired instead of dangerous. It looked normal. That was the worst part. I'd moved in 3 weeks earlier. The first night, I noticed the silence. Not peaceful silence. Empty silence. The kind that presses against your ears until you start imagining sounds just to break it. No crickets. No wind. Just the faint electrical hum of the house settling into itself. The second night, I heard footsteps in the hallway after midnight. Slow. Careful. Like someone unfamiliar with the floor plan. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, telling myself it was the house shifting, wood expanding and contracting. Old houses make noise. But the steps stopped outside my bedroom door. I heard breathing. Shallow. Measured. Then the doorknob turned. Locked. The breathing lingered for a long time before fading away. The third night, the phone rang. A landline phone sat on the kitchen wall when I moved in. I hadn't plugged it in. There was no dial tone. No service. But at 1:09 a.m., it rang anyway, loud and sharp enough to make me spill water all over myself. I answered it with shaking hands. Hello. A man's voice responded, calm and close. You're moving my things. I haven't touched anything, I said. You moved the chair, he replied. And the pictures. I glanced around the kitchen. The chair by the table was pushed in. I was sure I'd left it out. The framed photograph on the wall, a black and white picture of the house taken decades ago, was crooked. I'm sorry, I said, not sure why. I didn't know. Silence stretched. Then, don't go into the crawl space. The line went dead. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the lights on, watching shadows pool in corners that felt too deep for their shape. Around dawn, I smelled damp earth. Mold. Rot. Something old. The crawl space door was in the hallway, a small square panel set low in the wall. I'd noticed it when I moved in and promptly forgotten about it. Now I couldn't stop looking at it. The air around it felt cooler. Heavier. I didn't open it. The sound started after that. Scraping beneath the floor at night. Slow dragging noises, like something being pulled across dirt. Sometimes I heard whispers, too faint to understand, seeping up through the vents. My phone rang again the next night. You went to town, the voice said. Yes, I whispered. They told you things. I just asked about the lease. You shouldn't listen to them. His tone hardened. This is still my house. What do you want? I asked. To be left alone. A pause. And for you to stop hearing them. The call ended. That night, I dreamed of the crawl space. In the dream, it was much larger inside than it should have been, stretching on and on beneath the house. I dreamed of dirt walls lined with nails and old tools and bones. Human bones, arranged carefully, deliberately. When I woke up, dirt was under my fingernails. I hadn't been digging. I was sure of it. I called the sheriff. He came out in the afternoon, walked the property, checked the doors and windows. He frowned at the crawl space panel. "Mind if I look?" he asked. I nodded. When he pulled it open, a smell rolled out that made him gag. Damp soil. Decay. Something sweet and rotten beneath it all. He shined his flashlight inside. The beam caught on something pale. A hand. Not skeletal. Not fully decomposed. Preserved by the cool earth. Fingers curled like they were still trying to grab something. The sheriff stumbled back, face white. Jesus Christ. There were more. At least 3 bodies beneath the house, buried shallow and careless, as if whoever put them there had been in a hurry. The house wasn't rented anymore because no one had survived living there long enough to complain. That night, the phone rang one last time. "You shouldn't have done that," the voice said. It sounded closer than ever. Inside the house. Inside the walls. "They were calling me," I said. "They wanted to be found." A sound like a sigh? They're loud when they're buried wrong. The lights flickered. The floorboards creaked. I heard movement beneath the house, frantic now. Scratching. Scraping. Dozens of hands clawing at dirt and wood. "You don't belong here," the voice said, and now it wasn't coming from the phone anymore. It was behind me. The crawl space door slammed open. Cold hands grabbed my ankles. I was dragged screaming down the hallway, my nails tearing at the floor, my voice swallowed by the house's deep, waiting silence. The neighbors say the house is empty again. No utilities. No listing. Sometimes, late at night, if you stand near the road and listen hard enough, you can hear a phone ringing inside, and someone answering it, telling the caller, very politely, to stop asking questions. I took the night job because it paid more and because no one else wanted it. The sign on the bulletin board at the bus depot said Night Attendant, Terminal C, Graveyard Shift, Minimal Supervision. That should have been the warning. In East Texas, anything labeled minimal supervision usually meant forgotten, avoided, or quietly endured. Terminal C hadn't been used for passengers in years. The city said it was temporarily closed, but everyone knew what that meant. A couple of suicides. One murder they never solved. A lot of complaints about noises, shadows, and people seeing buses arrive that weren't on any schedule. My job was simple. Sit at the desk from midnight to 6. Watch the monitors. Answer the emergency phone if it rang. Call dispatch if something happened. Nothing ever happened, they said. The first night was quiet enough to make my teeth itch. Terminal C smelled like old carpet, diesel residue, and dust baked into concrete. The overhead lights hummed softly, half of them dimmer than the rest. Rows of plastic seats sat empty, bolted to the floor, their surfaces worn dull by decades of people waiting to leave town. The bus lanes outside were dark, stretching into blackness beyond the glass doors. At 12:47 a.m., the emergency phone rang. It was an old red wall phone bolted beside the desk. I'd been told it was disconnected. For show only. I stared at it while it rang, a hard mechanical sound that echoed through the empty terminal. I answered. "Terminal C," I said, feeling stupid. A man spoke on the other end, his voice thin and distorted, like it was coming through a bad radio signal. "The bus is late. I think you have the wrong terminal," I said. "This one's closed." A pause, then breathing. Slow. Labored. "We've been waiting," the man said. "They said not to sit." "Who's they?" I asked. The line crackled. Somewhere behind his voice, I heard murmuring. Not words, just the sound of many people whispering at once. "They said the seats, remember," he said. The call ended. I sat there staring at the phone until my coffee went cold. I checked the cameras. Terminal C was empty on every feed. No people, no movement, just rows of seats and dark glass. At 1:12 a.m., one of the cameras flickered. Camera 6 covered the far end of the terminal, near the old boarding lanes. For half a second, the image warped, like heat shimmered across the lens. When it cleared, someone was standing there. A man, tall, wearing a jacket that looked decades out of style. He stood perfectly still, facing away from the camera. I zoomed in. His feet weren't touching the floor. I stood up so fast my chair clattered behind me. When I looked at the terminal itself, through the glass from the desk, the far end was empty. The monitor still showed him. My phone buzzed on the desk. A voicemail notification. I hadn't heard my phone ring. The voicemail was from an unknown number. I listened. The same thin voice whispered, "They don't like it when you watch." That night, every hour on the hour, the emergency phone rang. Sometimes it was the same man. Sometimes it was a woman crying softly. Once it was a child asking when they could get off. Always the same complaint. The bus was late. They were tired of standing. The seats hurt them. By 4 a.m., the cameras showed dozens of people. They filled the terminal, standing in the aisles, between the seats, near the doors. None of them ever moved. None of them cast shadows. Some were transparent. Others looked solid but wrong. Faces stretched too long, limbs bent at angles that made my eyes slide away. I called dispatch. No answer. At 5:03 a.m., a bus pulled in. Not on the cameras, through the glass doors. Its headlights cut across the terminal, illuminating the standing figures. The bus was old, rusted. Its destination sign was blank. The doors hissed open. My emergency phone rang. "You can go now," the voice said. "But someone has to stay." The people began to move. They shuffled toward the bus in perfect silence. As they passed through the seats, I heard it. Faint, horrible sounds. Screams trapped in plastic. Voices muffled and distorted. The seats weren't empty. They were full of impressions, of pain pressed into shape. I backed away from the desk, shaking my head. "No," I said. "I'm not part of this." The man from camera 6 stood inches from me. Up close, his face looked burned smooth, like wax melted and reset. His eyes were dark pits. "They always say that," he said gently. "But the terminal doesn't open by itself." Cold hands closed around my shoulders. The last thing I saw was the bus doors closing. At 6 a.m., the day attendant arrived to find Terminal C locked, lights on, desk abandoned. The emergency phone rang once. No one answered. If you passed through that depot late at night, you might see lights on in Terminal C. You might hear a phone ringing. And if you listen closely to the seats, you'll hear voices begging you not to sit down. Because once you do, you're already waiting. I started losing sleep before the radio ever spoke to me. That's important, because later I would wonder if everything that happened was just exhaustion leaking into my waking life. I was working nights at a low-power AM radio station outside a West Texas town called Dry Fork, the kind of place that exists mostly as an idea on old maps. 2 gas stations, 1 high school, a grain elevator that hadn't moved grain in years. The station sat alone off Farm Road 118, surrounded by flat dirt and wind-bent scrub, its tower blinking red against the sky like a warning no one heeded. The overnight shift ran from midnight to 5. No callers, no live shows, just pre-recorded music and weather updates looping through an ancient automation system that groaned every time it switched tracks. My job was to sit there, make sure nothing crashed, and log any anomalies. That was the word management used. Anomalies. The first anomaly happened at 1:34 a.m. I was half dozing at the console when the music cut out mid-song. The meters dropped to 0. Dead air. I reached for the controls, heart jumping, when the speakers crackled to life on their own. Not music. Breathing. Low. Uneven. Like someone trying not to cry. I froze, hand hovering inches from the switch. Then a voice came through, distorted and warped by static. "Is anyone there?" I slammed the mute. Silence rushed in, thick and sudden. I checked the log. No scheduled interruption. No incoming signal. Nothing should have been able to override the system like that. I told myself it was a glitch, wrote it down, and forced myself to stay awake by drinking bad coffee and staring at the blinking lights on the board. At 2:12 a.m., it happened again. This time, I didn't mute it right away. "There was an accident," the voice said. "Female. Young." Her words stretched and bent like they were traveling a long way to reach me. They said help was coming. Static surged, then faded. "I can hear cars," she continued. But none of them stop. My skin prickled. "This is KDFR." I said into the mic before I could stop myself. "You're not on a call-in line. You shouldn't be able to hear me." A pause. Then, very softly, "You can hear me." The line went dead. The system snapped back to music like nothing had happened. I sat there shaking, staring at my reflection in the dark glass of the sound booth. My face looked pale and unfamiliar, like I was already halfway gone. The next morning, I searched old station records. In 1996, before the automation upgrade, KDFR had been a live overnight station. Call-ins, community announcements. One night in October, a teenage girl had called in from the side of the road. Car accident. Mile marker unknown. She was scared, injured. The DJ stayed on the line with her until the signal cut out. Her body was found 3 days later in a dry culvert 10 miles off the highway. The log ended with a single line, handwritten and shaky, signal lost. That night, I didn't want to go back, but I needed the money. I told myself I wouldn't engage. I'd mute anything strange immediately. At 1:34 a.m., the music stopped. Static poured out of the speakers, heavier now, layered with distant sounds. Wind. A passing truck. Something scraping against metal. She's not alone anymore, a new voice said. Male. Older. Calm in a way that made my stomach knot. Others heard her. What is this? I whispered. We're still calling, the voice said. The road is long. The signal carries. The speakers filled with overlapping voices then. Dozens of them. Men, women, children. Some crying. Some whispering mile numbers. Some just breathing. I muted the board, but the sound kept coming. Not from the speakers. From the walls. From the tower outside, humming louder than it should. My phone buzzed. No caller ID. I answered with numb fingers. You work nights, the calm voice said. That makes you easier to reach. Reach from where? I asked. A pause. Then, where we stopped. The lights flickered. Through the window, I saw a movement near the base of the tower. Shapes gathering in the dark, pale against the dirt. People standing too still, facing the building, their faces turned up toward the blinking red light. The radio crackled back to life, volume surging on its own. We just want someone to keep listening, the voices said together. So we don't fade. I backed away, shaking my head. No, I said. You're dead. Static laughter rippled through the room. So is the signal, the calm voice replied. But it still broadcasts. The door to the station creaked. I hadn't locked it. Footsteps approached down the hallway. Slow, dragging, familiar in a way that made my chest ache. I recognized the rhythm from the recordings, from the accident reports. The console lights flared, needles slamming to the right as if the station were broadcasting at 10 times its power. Stay on air, the voices pleaded. Don't let it go quiet. The footsteps stopped behind me. A cold presence leaned close, breath brushing my ear. It's your turn now, the calm voice said, no longer coming from the speakers. Morning came. The day crew found the station empty. Music looping. Logs neatly filled out until 1:34 a.m. when the handwriting changed, becoming tighter, more cramped. Broadcast continued. If you drive the highways around Dry Fork late at night, you might catch KDFR on your radio, even where it shouldn't reach. You'll hear weather updates that don't match the sky, music that cuts off mid-note. And sometimes, a calm voice will break through the static and ask, very politely, if anyone is listening. If you answer, the signal gets stronger. The voicemail appeared on my phone the morning after the funeral. No missed call, no timestamp, just a blank entry where the number should have been, sitting there like it had always belonged. I didn't listen to it right away. I was still numb from the drive back from Lubbock, from the smell of cut grass at the cemetery, from the way my father's casket sounded when it was lowered into the ground. Too hollow, too final. My mother had cried herself dry by noon. By evening, she'd retreated to her bedroom and shut the door, leaving me alone in the house I grew up in, a place that felt wrong without him in it. The phone buzzed again while I sat at the kitchen table, staring at a dark window that reflected my face back at me like a stranger's. New voicemail. I opened the first one. At first, I thought it was pocket noise. A faint hiss. A low rumble. Then I realized what I was hearing. Dirt. Earth sliding. Small rocks shifting and clicking together. And beneath it, so faint it made my chest tighten, a voice. Hello. It was my father. I dropped the phone like it burned me. I told myself it was grief. Auditory hallucinations weren't uncommon after loss. I picked the phone back up, hands shaking, and played it again. The sound was clearer this time. Scraping. A wet cough. I can't move, my father whispered. Something's wrong. I ran to my mother's room and knocked until my knuckles hurt. She didn't answer. I didn't tell her. I couldn't. What would I even say? That night, the house wouldn't settle. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Every sigh of wind through the trees outside sounded like breathing. I lay awake listening to my phone on the nightstand, waiting for it to buzz again. It did at 1:11 a.m. Voicemail. "I can hear people walking," my father said. His voice sounded strained now, panicked. "They're stepping on me." I pressed my fist into my mouth to keep from screaming. The next message came seconds later. "It's dark," he said. "Why is it so dark?" I didn't sleep. I sat there replaying the messages until the battery warning flashed red. The next morning, I drove back to the cemetery. The gates were locked. The place was empty except for a groundskeeper smoking beside a shed. I asked him if there had been any problems with the burial. Any mistakes? He looked at me like I was sick. "We don't mess that stuff up," he said. "Once it's in the ground, it stays there." My phone buzzed in my pocket. New voicemail. I didn't listen until I was back in the car. "They put something on top of me," my father whispered. "It's heavy. It hurts." I screamed then, full-throated, alone in the car. I went back home and dug through old paperwork, anything that might explain this. Death certificates, hospital records, funeral invoices. Everything was normal. Everything was correct. Except one thing. The plot number on the burial receipt didn't match the one on the cemetery map. I drove back again that afternoon, heart pounding, sweat soaking through my shirt. I found the plot number from the receipt. It wasn't my father's grave. It was an older one, unmarked, sunken slightly, the grass over it a different shade of green. My phone buzzed. "He's on top of me," my father said, his voice barely more than a breath now. "I can feel him." I understood then. They hadn't buried my father alone. They'd put him on top of someone else. The dead don't like to share. That night, the messages changed. The voice on the voicemail was still my father's, but something else layered beneath it now. A deeper tone, slower, angry. "You found us," the voice said. "That wasn't your place." Another message followed immediately. "He won't stop screaming," my father cried. "Please." I went to the garage and got a shovel. The cemetery was quiet when I arrived after midnight, the moon hanging low and yellow. I found the sunken grave easily. The earth there looked freshly disturbed, darker than the rest. My phone buzzed as I started digging. "Don't," my father begged. The dirt came away too easily, too loose. I hit wood within minutes. The phone buzzed again. A different voice spoke this time. Gravelly. Close. "He's ours now." I kept digging. The lid was cracked, splintered inward, like something had pushed up from below. The stench hit me next. Rot and damp earth and something metallic. I pried the lid open. There were two bodies inside. One was my father. The other was older, skeletal, its jaw stretched open in a permanent scream. Its hands were buried in my father's chest, fingers curled deep into flesh. My phone buzzed one last time. The voicemail played automatically. I heard dirt sliding, wood cracking. Then a voice whispered from behind me, right at my ear, warm and wet. "Now there's room." I don't remember leaving the cemetery. They found the grave open the next morning. Two coffins shattered. No bodies inside. My phone doesn't get voicemails anymore. Now it just rings. And when I answer, I hear breathing. From both sides of the line. I moved to Redwater, Texas, thinking it would be quiet. Small towns have a way of promising that. Empty streets, dusty sidewalks, low hums of cicadas in the heat. I wanted quiet after the divorce, after the city noise and the arguments in the apartment that felt like a cage. Redwater had one grocery store, one gas station, and a lake people used for weekend fishing, though most of them said they stayed away after dark. I found a little rental on the outskirts of town, a single-story house with peeling paint and a sagging porch. The landlord was odd, smiled too wide, spoke too softly, but the rent was cheap, and I wanted cheap. He handed me the keys and said, "The phone line works, but I wouldn't expect any calls. No one ever uses it." I thought that was strange, but shrugged. I hadn't lived with a landline for years. The first call came 3 nights after I moved in. I had just finished dinner and was stacking dishes in the sink when the old phone rang. I froze. It was connected, on the hook, and the display read an "No caller ID." I answered slowly. "Hello." A long silence. Then, a voice, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. "Do you see them?" "I see who?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "By the lake." The voice said, low, almost drowned in static. "They wait every night." The line went dead. I didn't sleep well that night. The wind rattled the porch boards, and I kept hearing small splashes coming from the lake that wasn't visible from my window. I told myself I was imagining it. But the next night, the phone rang again at precisely 2:02 a.m. "Hello," I said, my hands shaking. "You're too late," the voice said. This time I recognized it as male. Old, tired, and certain. "They're already moving." I hung up. My fingers tingled. I tried ignoring it, telling myself it was a prank or some weird glitch. But every night after that, the calls came. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. Always the same voice. Always warnings. Sometimes cryptic. Sometimes terrifyingly specific. The direction of the wind. A tree fallen near the lake. A dog that hadn't barked in years. One night, around 2:13 a.m., I couldn't ignore it anymore. "They're closer tonight," the voice whispered. "Who's there?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "Not who," the voice corrected. "What?" A scrape against the wooden floorboards behind me made me spin. The hall was empty. The bathroom light flickered. I stumbled over to the window overlooking the lake. The water was black, still. But then I saw it, movement. Shadows rising from the water, slow, deliberate, as if whatever it was didn't want to scare me. But it did. I could feel my pulse hammering. The phone rang before I could even move. The voice was insistent now, urgent. "Do not look away. They remember the ones who forget." I stayed by the window, my knees pressed against the sill, my hands shaking around the phone. The shadows moved closer, solidifying into shapes. Human shapes, but wrong. Arms too long, heads too small, faces blank, mouths opening in silent screams. I wanted to run. I wanted to hide. But the voice kept me there, whispering instructions, guiding me. "They wait for you to see them," it said, "or they vanish. You're safe only while you watch." I watched until dawn. The shapes receded as the first light of morning crept across the lake. I felt drained, hollow, and when I finally dared to look away, I realized my reflection in the window had changed. My eyes were too dark, my arms too long, my mouth stretched wider than it should have been. The phone rang again at noon. No caller ID. I didn't answer. By the third week, the calls became more than warnings. They began giving instructions. Places to avoid, roads not to travel, windows to lock, doors to seal. Sometimes, they told me where bodies were buried. Old bodies, missing persons long forgotten by the town. I checked a few. They were right. Every single time. One night, I tried to leave Redwater. I packed my car and drove down Highway 69, heading south. But as I passed the turnoff to the lake, the phone rang again, and no caller ID. I answered automatically. "You can't leave," the voice said. Calm, certain. "They won't let you." I looked in the rearview mirror. The shadows were rising from the water again. Not just a few. Dozens. They moved across the fields, across the road. Silent, but faster than anything natural. I slammed the brakes. My car skidded to the shoulder. The shadows stopped. The radio flickered on with static. I could hear faint whispers coming from all directions. Counting, chanting, laughing. The phone vibrated violently in my hand. "They remember," the voice said. "And now, so do you." I turned the engine off, got out of the car, and watched the shadows move toward me. They weren't running, but they covered ground too fast, gliding, sliding, filling every inch of darkness. I was frozen, unable to move. Then the voice whispered one last time. "Don't blink." I don't know how long I stood there. Seconds, hours. When the sun finally rose, the shadows vanished. The road was empty, my car untouched. The next day, I called the town office. The lake, they said, was empty. No one had lived there for decades. It had been drained. The phone rang at 2:02 a.m. that night. No caller ID. I answered anyway, and they were waiting. The shadows always wait. The voice said nothing this time. Just breathe, calm and certain. And I knew the moment I hung up, they would move again. I started noticing it the first week I moved into the old gas station house on the outskirts of Corsair, Texas. Not the house itself. It was small, peeling white paint, sagging porch, windows with cheap aluminum blinds. But the feeling. The air felt thicker in the evenings, like the wind didn't want to touch it. I chalked it up to isolation. After all, Corsair wasn't exactly bustling. One diner, one church, a post office that closed early. Nothing lived out here except me, the occasional coyote, and that endless stretch of highway that glittered under the hot Texas sun and disappeared into the night like a ribbon of black glass. The first sign came from the phone. It was a landline. I hadn't expected it to work, but at 11:03 p.m., it rang. No caller ID. I answered. Hello. Silence. Then breathing. Slow. Dry. Hesitant. Who is this? I asked. My voice sounded small in the empty kitchen. You're not supposed to hear it yet, the voice said. Low, deliberate, too calm. What do you mean? There was a pause, long enough for my pulse to jack up. They're behind you. I spun around. The hallway was empty. The blinds shifted slightly, though the wind outside was still. Who's behind me? I whispered. Another pause. Then the line clicked dead. I slept with the lights on that night. Every shadow seemed sharper. Every floorboard creak sounded deliberate. And somewhere, outside the house, there was a scraping, like nails dragged across asphalt. The next night, the phone rang again. Same time, 11:03 p.m. I didn't answer. I sat frozen in the living room, watching the walls, counting the seconds. The ringing stopped after 6 long tones. Then a new sound, scratching. Low, desperate, coming from the baseboards. I moved closer. Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator. Then it whispered. Not through the phone. Through the room itself. You shouldn't be here. I backed away toward the door. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the keys. The whispers became a voice. Male, old, ragged with age. It's not safe at the edge. I ran to my car and locked the doors. I thought maybe it was someone playing a joke, but the town was too quiet, too small for someone to be watching me like this. By the 4th night, the calls had changed. They stopped being warnings and started being instructions. Leave the kitchen light on. Don't close the blinds. Go to the mailbox at 2:17 a.m. You will see it then. I wanted to ignore it, but something, an invisible, pressing weight, made me follow. At exactly 2:17 a.m., I walked barefoot down the long driveway to the mailbox. The road beyond was empty. No cars. Nothing moved. Then I saw them. Shadows at the edge of the field. Hundreds of them. Flickering between shapes that looked human and shapes that weren't. Faces that were blurred, stretched, or missing. They stood perfectly still, watching me. No wind. No sound. Yet I could feel them. Heavy, like gravity pulling in one direction. The phone buzzed in my pocket. They see you too, said the familiar, calm voice. Don't run. I obeyed, frozen in place, staring at the shadows. One of them stepped forward, or something that looked like a step. Its limbs bent at impossible angles. Its face was blank, pale, stretched vertically like wax melting. I could hear the faintest whisper, coming from somewhere between the night air and the phone. You're next. I ran. Back to the house. Slammed the door. Locked it. Every lock, every bolt. The shadows didn't follow. Not immediately. But when I checked the cameras I had installed, security cameras pointing toward the driveway, they were there. Hundreds of blurred, impossible shapes standing just beyond the yard, waiting. The phone rang again at 3:33 a.m. No caller ID. I answered. They never forget, the voice said. And now, so do you. Something banged against the windows. Hard. Nails on glass. A face appeared for a fraction of a second. A face that looked like mine. But wrong. Eyes too black. Mouth too wide. I haven't slept properly since. I can hear scratching behind the walls. Soft whispers when the phone rings. The shadows stand beyond the porch in the dead of night, just at the edge of the yard. They never move in daylight. Never speak. Just wait. I called the sheriff once. Told him about the shadows, the phone, the voice. He laughed. Son, he said, you're too far out. Small towns have a lot of lonely nights. You just need a good night's sleep. I haven't slept properly since. The last voicemail came at 2:17 a.m., just this morning. I listened. It was my voice, calling me from the edge of the field. Calm, certain, telling me to step outside. Step closer. Step into the dark where the shadows wait. And now I know. If I answer that call, I won't come back. They're patient. They've been waiting. And they always get their turn. I was house-sitting my aunt's old place outside San Angelo, Texas. She'd been vague about the house, saying only, if the phone rings after midnight, don't answer it. I laughed at her. Ghost stories weren't my style. The house sat a mile off the highway, surrounded by empty fields. The windmill in the yard squealed intermittently, but otherwise, it was silent. Inside, the air smelled of dust, old wood, and something faintly metallic. The landline hung on the kitchen wall, beige and heavy. I hadn't expected it to work. It didn't need to. The first night, at 12:06 a.m., it rang. I froze. My heart hammered. The line had been dead. I stared at it until the ringing stopped. Nothing happened. I told myself it was a glitch. The second night, it rang at exactly 12:06 again. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling. The ringing lasted 10 slow, deliberate tones, then stopped. I heard nothing else. The third night, curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up. Hello. Static. Then wind. Not the wind outside. The sound of air trapped in a cavity. Then footsteps. Slow. Uneven. Echoing beneath the floor. You're in her house, a man said. Calm, dry, unhurried. Yes, I whispered. Who is this? She shouldn't let people stay, he replied. It wakes things up. What things? I asked, my throat tight. Silence. Then a humorless chuckle. You'll hear them soon. The line went dead. I unplugged the phone and shoved it in a drawer. I told myself the house was old, that the calls were my imagination. That night, knocking started. Not on the doors or windows, beneath the floorboards. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. A rhythm that made my stomach turn. I sat on the couch, sweating, listening as the sound moved. Living room, hallway, kitchen, like something pacing underground. At exactly 12:06, my cell phone buzzed. No caller ID. I answered without thinking. They're louder now, the man said. They don't like being left alone. I drove into town the next day to ask about the house. People went quiet when I mentioned it. Finally, an old man at the diner spoke. Used to be a family here before your aunt, he said. Father worked oil. Kids stayed home. One night, fire. Nobody survived. No bodies. Just the house burned clean to the ground. I swallowed hard. People said anything unusual? Some said they heard knocking under the ground for weeks. Said it didn't stop. I didn't go back that night. I slept in my car on the side of the highway. At 12:06, the phone rang anyway. They can't hear you, the voice whispered. You're next. The next morning, I returned. The windmill squealed like it was screaming. Inside, the floorboards felt warm, like something had been breathing under them all night. The phone was back on the wall, plugged in. I didn't touch it. At 12:06 that night, it rang. I answered. They're right under you, the voice said. Closer now. Inside the room. They remember the fire. They remember screaming. The floorboards groaned. Small cracks appeared. Fissures widened. From the gaps, hands emerged. Blackened, charred, fingers bent at impossible angles. More followed. Dozens. Clawing. Scraping. The phone slipped from my hand, dangling by the cord. The voice was calm, but furious. Don't hang up. If you hang up, they'll stop calling. The floor beneath me gave way. I screamed as the darkness swallowed me. Heat, smoke, dirt, and the smell of charred wood filled my senses. The hands pulled me down, pressing, clawing, but I clawed back, desperate to reach the surface. I woke outside at dawn. The house was still, quiet, normal. No holes, no smoke. The land looked flat and ordinary. The windmill no longer squealed. They told me later the house had collapsed overnight. Sinkhole, they said. Old foundation. Nothing unusual. But the phone kept ringing. At 12:06 every night. Even in my apartment in town, my phone rings. Sometimes it's the same man. Sometimes children crying. Sometimes just scratching noises. I answer. The line is heavy with breathing, whispers, or faint screaming from underground. I've learned not to hang up. If I do, the house, or whatever was trapped beneath it, will come for me. The last call I received began calmly. You've been listening. Now it's your turn. I didn't answer. I can hear it now. The scratching under my floorboards. The faint, muffled screams. The phone buzzing relentlessly on its own. And I know that one night, if I sleep too long, or ignore it, they will finally pull me down. Because answering keeps them buried. Silence will set them free. And they never forgive.